What resources we have would warrant having extra protection or more specified language.
So let me ask a question that I probably should have, now that I'm settling into this meeting here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna share with everybody what my thoughts were about, developing bylaws for Acushnet. And then we can go around and everybody can give their input as to what they would like to contribute, because I want everybody to contribute to this bylaw, right? And what you guys want to, how you want to shape this bylaw of Acushnet here. So my thoughts are that it would be a good guide. For me, I felt as if a lot of the site visits we go to, I'm not really sure on, how to handle certain things. And then when I ask, you have like this practice versus the MACC guideline, where is that, where do we fall within that? And I can give you an example in one that, in my best example is regarding swimming pools, I guess. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot getting, putting up in the town, and we've seen on site visits, and then there's some that are really close to the wetlands, some of them in the buffer zone, and how do you discharge the water? How close do you get? So should there be a special case for, for pools, for example? So that's what prompted my interest into writing something up. And I'm not saying that it's limited to that, because I know that there are other examples, and that's just one that was reoccurring. And I felt as if we were inconsistent at times with how we approved the NOI for those.
Sure.
So I just want to be more consistent also with that.
Right. No, that's a legitimate question, and it's worth looking at what other towns have done regarding pools. Another example, Paul, would be setback. Some towns say no matter what, you need something 25 feet away from the wetland line as a no activity zone. We request it, we strongly encourage it, but we don't have that in writing. Some towns do. So if we were to create our own wetland bylaw, something like that could be in there. So no matter what, 25 feet from the wetland flag line towards your project, nothing can happen there, and you've got to find a way to demarcate it, whether it's shrubs, split rail fence, stone wall, I don't know, something else natural and non-toxic. And some towns have that.
Yeah.
We should.
Yeah. I think this conversation started a few weeks ago, I think for that very reason, Bob. Right, Paul? If I'm not mistaken, it was because we were at a meeting and we talked about, no work zones. And I think that came as a result of the two houses that the Knox family are building on Perry Hill. I think as a result of that, I believe. We mentioned, I believe it was Paul that mentioned in a meeting that we wanted to set something in stone or have something out,
Yeah, because there was a previous one, the one over here off of Peckham Road, that's probably still in some sort of debate there. But that one was one that was really close to the buffer zone, if not, probably inside that 25 feet that you're talking about, Bob.
Right.
So it was happening, and then it came up more, and then I felt I wasn't doing the service well with the Wetlands Protection Act if I ignored that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how you feel, Ryan.
No, I agree. I got it written down in my notes. I like a 25-foot no activity zone for sure.
Yep.
Obviously with discretion, if it's they want to put a tool shed within the buffer zone, and it's going to be on cinder blocks as opposed to somebody digging an 8-foot foundation. There's a difference between those two
Right.
matters, and it would be obviously the discretion of the board to let them go ahead with it or whatever. But I definitely feel I have that written down already. That's really important, I think, to be added into our bylaw.
Yeah. And Ryan, you just mentioned something that used to come up, hasn't come up lately, but this was something Mark Broder used to be keen on managing. If there was a project happening and vehicles needed to be on site for that project, where were they going to be parked? Were they going to, was there going to be something under them to catch, whatever drips were happening? Was there going to be refueling, those kinds of things? And those
Right.
kind of regulations could be in there as well, where, we haven't had any major projects lately, but if it did require vehicles staying on site, then you want to manage where they're going to get parked, how they're going to get refuel, what they're going to park on, that kind of stuff too. So I think that's.
So Bob, are you referring to like backhoes and,
Yes.
right?
And then Ryan mentioned sheds. If a shed's going to have gas cans and oil cans and that kind of stuff, that's got to be a further distance away from the flag line than just a tool shed where there's clearly no liquids, no fuels. It's just, clippers and trowels and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Electric tools.
So those will all be different sections, I would imagine, right?
It could be, sure. And I know some towns have that written in.
Yeah. I'm not sure if Everett wants to comment or not. Or Mary Lee, do you have anything?
Not at the moment, no. I'm just taking notes.
Everett?
Just
Oh,
listening in.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Everett?
I'm just listening in.
Okay. Rick?
Yeah, you guys are talking about the no activity zone. All the bylaws that you sent to us, Paul, from, neighboring towns and all that. And I was flipping through while you were talking. The one town I think that was very explicit about their no work zones, I think more than anyone else out of that pile you gave us, was the town of Wareham. They have sections that are very explicit when it comes to, no activity zones. Again, that's just, I'm just bringing that up as something for all of us when we have a chance to look at that particular section.
Mhm.
Now, again, does it apply? Would it apply well into our town? I mean, of course, Wareham has different geography, has a coast they have to worry about and all that.
Mhm.
There may be some things in that no activity zone, particularly under residential construction, that might apply to us. I don't know. I think it's something to look at.
So I'm not sure, Bob, how to slice it and dice it, but
Yeah, I know it's a lot. Yeah.
so what I'm proposing, Bob, I mean, I'm in no hurry to get this done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to drag it on for a year, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure there are parts of this that we don't have to spend a lot of time on, right? It's probably just a nameplate to all the bylaws, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because if you look at what towns have, you look at what the MACC model bylaw is, there's a lot of similarity. And the lucky thing we find, the lucky situation we have is we don't have to deal with any saltwater coastline.
Yeah.
Which simplifies things for us. And Paul and the others, so once we come up with our proposal for a town-specific wetland bylaw, this then has to get put on the town meeting warrant, and the town has to vote on it. So when we get up there to make our argument,
What's the argument, Bob?
The argument would, you know, if certain, like, so several years ago, there was an open space survey done, and a large majority, we're talking 75, 80% of the people who responded said one of the things they like best about the town is the rural character of the town. Well, the Conservation Commission having town-specific extra protections for those rural characters is a, you know, that would be a selling point when trying to get this past the town meeting. And we can certainly, us merely included, can talk to, or just, you know, talk to members of other commissions or other agents, or even, you know, the leaders at MECC to find out what selling points they used when they had to get up and speak in front of town meeting.
So the main objectors would be developers?
Well, they're going to be the ones that would say they're affected the most. But a lot of these projects that come up lately, you've noticed, are either certificates of compliance or septic upgrades.
Yeah.
A lot of work's been done. People just want their COC so they can sell their house or take the lien off of it. So, you know, just to free up some of the legal details. There's not a lot of building going on in town right now, so this is actually a good time to move this along.
So Mary Lee, you mentioned that the town has, the commission has tried in the past?
Oh, yes. Yes, we have. And we've been shot down big time by some other members of the community. You know, people have gotten up and said, you know, I don't see why the Wetlands Protection Act is not enough. And you know, a wetland bylaw would be too restrictive. So, and at the time, people agreed, you know, so I think it's important that we have a good reason or many good reasons to have the bylaw.
I'd like to propose that we are just better defining the bylaws to apply to our town more than we would be changing anything that the bylaw states. We're just trying to make a right one that better fits our community. That's all. I wouldn't, that's how I would sell it.
Yeah, and that's, you know, I agree with that. And I think that was probably the crux of past attempts too. But, you know, attitudes change. You know, and as people see encroachment happening, they may decide, yeah, this is a good idea to try to protect this rural character of town a little bit more.
So it was, I'm sorry about that.
I was going to say the last time we tried this, I don't remember. I mean, I don't even know if it happened while I was chair.
Yeah, I think you were, but maybe newly chair, because it was,
Yeah.
I had only been here a little while.
Yeah, because I've been chair since 2006. And it was early on then, you know. And there was one attempt prior to that, maybe two attempts, but. Yeah.
So Mary Lee, is there a way we can get copies of those proposals?
Of proposals that we did before?
Right.
Sure.
I know this has never happened in my time on the board.
No,
Well, that's good to know.
I think it was before your time.
So Everett, you have a good feel for the spirit of the town. Where do you think the people fall right now?
I think there's a big environmental issue that people are probably hot about right now. So this might be the time to try to institute something like this.
Even though there were some people in town that were mad at me that we chose not to vote 4 or 5 weeks ago on the first enforcement order. I still think people are keen on trying to protect our resources.
Yeah, and I think to speak to that briefly, I don't want to dwell on it, but I think as a commission, we have to make sure that, you know, legally, we don't want a return issue. We want to address the issue, address it properly, whether it takes 1 or 2 times, maybe visits, whatever it takes. So that way we address it with the right attitude and cross all our T's and dot all our I's, so we don't have to revisit this again because we missed something the first time. So I agree with the commission as to not to vote until we visit the site. No one should have an issue with that, I don't think.
Well, we've moved along, fortunately, and now the lawyers are fighting it out. So yeah, so it sounds like merrily you'll be able to find a file of the last proposed wetlands bylaw that came up.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I have notes on it. Sure.
Yeah. But it was,
Yeah.
was it before you were the agent?
No, I was the agent at the time.
Okay.
But we didn't get very far though. I don't remember taking it all the way to town meeting.
Okay.
Because you were discouraged prior to?
Because yes, exactly.
You folded.
We did. We wimped out.
Well, I definitely think something in black and white on the town's website that gives the definitions, gives an explanation of what the Wetlands Protection Act is, and then just basic stuff that, filing notices of intent, definitions of, hydraulic soils and stuff like that. I think if it's all in black and white and pretty much the way we do business is explained in it, I don't see why somebody would go against it. I mean, other than maybe not liking the 25-foot no activity zone, and I think that would probably be the toughest thing to pass, really, because a lot of people
I
don't.
think, yeah, I agreed, Ryan. Yeah, but I think if we write it properly, because we all know there's exceptions to everything, we can list some of those exceptions as guides, and everything would have to be discussed at a meeting. So I mean, again, it's not. We have to try to sell it as it's just a better clarification, like you said, defining the process a little bit, so people have more education when they go over and apply for certain things.
Right.
And they know what to expect and how to prepare for it.
Yeah. Ultimately, everybody wants to know that the rules are being applied equally to everybody.
Yep.
That no favorites are being played.
Right.
So having it in writing is a good thing.
So I think all of those have to be in our introduction to the board,
Right.
the selectmen. That's going to be, the theme.
Mm-hmm.
We're just trying to put something out there. Right now, the residents have nothing to go by for our town.
Except the state regs.
Yeah.
Fortunately, when we've encouraged and requested the 25-foot no activity zone, people have said, okay. There's really not much argument. Their bigger concern and interest is having us vote to move their project along. And if they need to meet a specific step or two, they're willing to do it. But having it in writing and applying it equally,
Right.
definitely the best way.
Yeah,
I think that is a very valid point, Bob. It's about no favoritism, and that's what a lot of people seem to feel in the town. In some issues, I've felt that.
Right. And on that note, Paul's done.
Yeah. Good night, Paul.
It gets dark early now. I gotta shed some light on the situation.
Now we can see you.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure how much we're going to get through this today, but I just want to, discuss it a little bit so everybody can get a feel of what everyone's thinking and direction we all want to go. And I think that we're all on the same page, and we're going to contribute. And I want everybody to contribute to it, because I want it to be thorough, but not lengthy, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Absolutely, as concise as possible.
Yep.
So, Bob, I'm looking at the MACC draft ordinance there.
Yep.
From what I was reading, you just kind of fill in your own. Is that what you do? You add to this?
Yes. Or you put language specific to your town. We
There is
have.
one thing.
Go
Sorry.
ahead, Marlene. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Bob.
No, I was just please, you go.
There is one thing I saw when I was looking that over this afternoon. Is they have a clause in there about notifying abutters that are excuse me, that are 300 feet from the activity and abutters to abutters, which I think it would be a good idea to play down people coming in later and saying, I didn't know anything about it, I didn't hear about the meeting, la la la.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to notify the whole neighborhood when something's going on. If it's a good-sized project.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Riley, I missed that.
I was just saying that there's a clause in there that says that the notification of abutters extends to abutters of abutters, and it goes out 300 feet, whereas right now you only have to notify people that are 100 feet from the project site.
Oh.
So it just extends it enough so that neighbors understand that this is going to happen, whatever it is.
So that's something you're in favor of.
Yeah, I'm in favor of it.
Extending that notice.
Yes.
Okay. You mean, like if it's a septic upgrade, it's, that's one thing. But if it's a development, like on the Moniz property around the Cranberry Bog, then that's one of those things you'd certainly want abutters to know about.
Absolutely.
That's a big project.
Or the solar panels on Mendel Roads.
Road, yep.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So yes, I like that. It's specific to the size and the scope of the project. So I'm not sure if everybody wanted to dig in tonight. I mean, at least get the purpose out there, which the purpose should be pretty straightforward. I'm not sure if there's anything that we'd like to add there, unless it's more like the water supply, which is already mentioned. I'm not sure if there's be anything specific to Acushnet that's not on here. There might be something that we may remove that may not be necessary. So should I just read it sentence by sentence and then discuss it if it applies or not, and how we can define it to better represent Acushnet?
I think if we're going to do that, then maybe we only do. Are you just talking about the purpose section?
Right now, I'm just talking about the purpose.
Yeah, and then perhaps as a follow-up, and I'm just throwing this out there, because we've seen examples of 3 or 4 towns. If each of us wanted to pick a town and compare that language to this model bylaw, and then next time we talk, this, make a recommendation about certain language, maybe that's a way to handle it. So each of us is just taking one town's bylaw, comparing it to the model provided by MACC, and that frames our next conversation. But I do like the idea of, let's just look at section 1, these 2 paragraphs, and use that as the basis for further conversations.
Yeah, because my thoughts is this is pretty general. You know, it's a purpose which should be fairly equal for every town.
Right.
So yes, I think this would be a good start to get, you know, to get below the surface a little bit tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Um,
might be able to do section 2 as well.
that's pretty general also.
I think so. It's only a paragraph, right?
Well, and maybe 1 1/4.
Yep, paragraph and a little tiny paragraph. Paul, should I see if I have screen sharing privileges?
If you don't, you could probably get it.
I do, actually. I do. I'm going to put it up on the screen. So there we go. Can everybody see that then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Paul, lead away.
All right. The purpose of this bylaw is to protect the wetlands, water resources, flood-prone areas, and adjoining upland areas in the town of, you know what to put there, right, Bob?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do that live?
No.
No?
Yeah, I can. Sorry, it was just
You should be able to.
from my bride.
You
I'll
could probably, you know what you can do, Bob? Just save this as a draft of Acushnet.
yeah, I'm just gonna write it on paper here and I'll add it in later. Okay, continue.
Upland areas in the town of Acushnet by controlling activities deemed by the Conservation Commission likely to have a significant or cumulative effect. See note 1. Now, where is
What
that?
is note 1?
Let's find it. Probably at the end of the thing here. It's definitions. Is there a note 1 at the bottom? Note 1. This model bylaw is merely a skeleton. The regulations actually adopted by the Conservation Commission will add the flesh and blood of the local wetlands program. Well, that's fairly explicit language, isn't it?
It's funny because I'm reading Rochester's right now, and it's pretty similar to what you've just read.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm
Okay,
sure
Ryan's
most
right.
towns just, it's like I said, it's just a nameplate on the, it's more like an introduction than anything else. And of course, and we're here to protect the Wetlands Protection Act. So it should be, I wouldn't expect it to be too much different from them, between them all.
Yeah, Ryan is right. First 2 sections at least is exact, yeah.
Okay.
So see note 1, which we just did, and
Right.
note 1 really doesn't direct us. So I'm not sure if we even need that there, right, Bob?
Well, we'll take those 3. We'll take that parenthetical expression out. I will. You know, we can remove that
Okay.
because that again, this is just a guide.
So on resource area values, what does that mean, Bob?
Resource area values, that goes back to the Wetlands Protection Act, which lists out all 8 values provided by wetlands. So water storage, flood control, slow down of velocity, habitat, those things.
So that's what makes a wetland a wetland. How do you, right? Those are the things the area has to have in order to be classified as a wetland.
That's more about why wetlands are important, how they benefit people. So resource area values, again, when we're talking about selling points, those 8 things listed on the MACC page, and I think on the state site, list the 8 values to people. It's just like, like you're trying to sell anything. You want to show how it impacts a person, how it impacts their wallet. Well, flood control is really important. Slowing down the velocity of water going across a property. Some people want to know that the green resource near their property is going to have good wildlife value because they want to hear that stuff chirping and croaking when they wake up in the morning. So those resource area values, as they're listed within this state, ultimately relate back to how they benefit people.
So they do list some value.
And actually, yeah, Paul, they're all right.
Yeah, yeah.
They're all right after it, yeah.
Yes, I was, while you were speaking, and I was listening to you, Bob, I was also reading those. Now, my question was, are there any that are not included there that are specific to Acushnet?
That's a good question. I don't know. That's something one of we can.
I mean, it has a public and private water supply, which you touched upon, Bob, earlier. Mainly, right, all the wells that I'm sure a lot of the town is well water, which that's what the groundwater supply refers to, right? Flood control you mentioned.
Yep.
Erosion and sedimentation. What is sedimentation control?
Well, you know that big dirt mess that you and I didn't see at Keating, but everybody else saw?
Yeah.
That's sedimentation.
So that's just overflow from
It's just
whatever.
dirt going into areas where it shouldn't and clogging the movement of water, clogging habitat.
The storm drainage prevention would also pertain to, private homes and how they redirect the rainwater.
Or when they're building, when they're constructing a new home and preventing any soil and material from going into the drains in the road,
Oh, from going to the drains. Yeah. So is it necessary to break this down into examples at some point? No.
For the purposes of the bylaw, no. I don't think so. If somebody asks us a question, then we should be able to, verbally respond with an example. But it doesn't need to be in the bylaw. That's my take on it anyway.
I agree.
So it's storm damage.
And that's why we attend the MACC conferences.
Yeah. Including coastal, I'm sorry.
I think it's important to just point out that the Wetlands Protection Act and this bylaw are both written, they're written from the perspective of the use that people have for wetlands. Or not necessarily that they're going to use it, but that wetlands have a value to people. And not just that wetlands are intrinsically valuable on their own. That they're important to people, and that's why the bylaw exists.
Yep. Yes.
Agreed.
Yeah, you want to show how it helps them. There's a monetary value or a savings. Like part of the abutment to their house is not going to wash away because you've got the wetlands, the rooted plants, and all that stuff there to keep that from happening.
Exactly.
So I guess we should scroll down and see what note 2 says. There's all that legalese, the severability business.
It talks about recreational impact.
I must have blown past it. You
should.
Okay, Bob. I know I can count.
You can find the words too. You have a search bar, Bob. If you put there's a search bar on the top. If you type number 2.
Okay, so the town may regulate for recreational impact, but we do not recommend denial of a permit for this reason alone. Also, avoid regulation for the purpose of protecting navigation. That's not a concern for us. And don't suggest regulating for aesthetics. No, we don't have to worry about that either. That'll cause more arguments than is worth. All right. So how are we feeling about that first paragraph then? mean, I think it explains the how and it explains why. And as Marilee said, it explains the values to people.
Yeah, I think that's, Mary Lee, if you could just keep those selling points noted somewhere separately as a group. So when we start to build our case, we'll have the right language when we go in front of the selectmen.
Okay.
Just so we don't forget and miss anything.
Yep, that makes sense.
So this bylaw is intended to utilize the home rule authority of this municipality so as to protect the resource areas under the Wetlands Protection Act, GL Chapter 130, Section 40, the Act, to a greater degree, to protect the additional resource areas beyond the Act recognized by the town as significant, to protect all resource areas for their additional values beyond those recognized in the Act, and to impose on local regulations and permits additional standards and procedures stricter than those of the Act and regulations thereunder 310 CMR 10. Subject, however, to the rights and benefits accorded to agricultural uses and structures of all kinds under the laws of the Commonwealth and other relevant bylaws of the town of Acushnet.
Mm-hmm. So, that next to last sentence, according to agricultural uses, there are slightly separate, like things in chapter 61A, 61B, so they get regulated a little bit differently.
And in some cases, they're exempt from certain things, correct, Bob?
Correct. And if something, and which, including certain forms of taxation. And if things are coming out of 61A and they want to turn it into sellable, developable property, then they often give the town the right of first refusal or first purchase. And Marilee, if I'm speaking incorrectly on that, let me know.
Yeah, no, that sounds right.
Okay. And you all understand that first sentence about home rule authority, because Massachusetts operates under home rule petition. It gives the opportunity for each town to set its own bylaws if they choose to. No, not all states operate like this. And then, you decide, and which is why every town has its own conservation commission as well, because of home rule authority, as opposed to just one statewide thing. And
And that's what complicates things too.
yeah, and some towns choose to have town meeting the way we do. Then you have Fairhaven, which has representative town meeting, but they still have a conservation commission in the same form that we have.
What's the representative, Bob, for my knowledge?
You would vote for someone to represent you at town meeting, and that person would then hopefully vote the way you would like. So instead of if we go 10,000, just say we've got 5,000 registered voters in Acushnet. If all 5,000 wanted to go to a town meeting, they could. In Fairhaven, which I think is like 17,000, they vote for representatives, and those are the only people that can vote at a town meeting.
For every case?
Yes.
So they're such, so the commission is more of a dynamic group.
Whereas their conservation commission operates just like ours. But if they wanted to get a wetlands bylaw passed, they've got to get the representatives to vote for it, whereas we have to get anybody that goes to a town meeting to vote for it.
And those representatives are not always the same.
Right.
Same
Yeah, there's elections, I don't know how many years, every 4 years in Fairhaven. Whereas in Acushnet, we don't complicate it like that. You want to go to town meeting, you go to town meeting.
Yeah.
The town I grew up in, decided that they wanted to have a mayor, so they became a city. They are the city of the town of Weymouth.
Huh.
Yeah. I guess town meeting was no fun in Weymouth. I don't know. I never went.
Hmm. So I know, Paul, you're leading the meeting, but I'll nudge it along a little bit. Do you have any other comments or questions about purpose? Other than within those brackets, we need to put our town's name. We'll get rid of those two things that say C note 1 and C note 2. And just leave it as is otherwise? No.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can't think of anything special and purpose-wise for the town right now.
And it sounds like Rick and Ryan just had a look at another town and what they saw was the same as these
Yeah.
two paragraphs here.
Yeah, it was in
Yeah.
Rochester. Yeah, yeah. Ryan had picked
Okay.
up on it.
Yeah, both Rochester. I'm basically just looking at Rochester and Freetown based on the geography and just the town makeups are very similar. So
Sure.
there's not, I mean, granted, we do have a little bit of coastal with the Acushnet River and it's brackish, but I mean, there isn't any shellfishing in there. But we are still trying to protect that resource, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, nothing strictly pertaining to shellfish or whatever. So I've basically been really paying attention to Rochester and Freetown. And
That
that's
makes sense. That makes
that's
sense.
about it.
Jurisdiction. Except as permitted by the Conservation Commission, no person shall commence to remove, fill, dredge, build upon, degrade, discharge into, or otherwise alter the following resource areas: any freshwater or coastal wetlands, marshes, wet meadows, bogs, swamps, vernal pools, springs, banks, reservoirs, lakes, ponds of any size, beaches, dunes, estuaries, the ocean, and lands under water bodies, intermittent streams, brooks and creeks, lands adjoining these resource areas out to a distance of 100 feet, known as the buffer zone. Perennial rivers, streams, brooks, and creeks. See note 3.
It's down there.
The notes get longer too as
Notes. Optional additional protection for intermittent streams. In some communities, it may be reasonable to extend 200-foot riverfront area protection to intermittent streams, brooks, and creeks. To do so, delete the word intermittent streams, brooks, and creeks just before lands adjoining these resource areas out to a distance of 100 feet. Delete the word perennial and insert the words whether perennial or intermittent just before lands adjoining these resource areas out to a distance of 200 feet. Suppose we can refer back to Rochester and Freetown for guidance on that. And if Merrily has any other insight as to instances or examples involving intermittent streams, we should consider those as well.
There are places like Deep Brook. You know, that's a pretty what would I say, important brook, I would say. But that dries up on a dry year. You know, and lots of people have said, "Oh, we've seen it dry."
Sure.
So in that case, I would say that I would like to see, you know, perennial stream protections extended to Deep Brook. You know, that's the only one that jumps to mind at the moment. But I'm sure there may be others. You know, I mean, in a really bad year, there are parts of the Acushnet River that could dry up.
Yeah.
River's almost
Hopefully they
dry right
don't.
now.
Yeah, exactly.
But fortunately, that's listed as a river. So it's got that protection.
There are some streams that run down from Victoria Street in New Bedford down through the old farm property, down through the fields behind the library. And they
Uh-huh.
do dry up during the dry weather, but during the wetter months, they're pretty full streams.
Sure.
Actually, I think one of them on the white property has a dam to control the water coming out.
Where is that over?
If you go down Victoria Street in New Bedford behind where the freight's bottle is, GNS
Yeah. Yep. Oh,
down
yeah.
to the bottom. It
Yeah.
used to be a dirt lane that used to run through the field.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pond there, and I'm pretty sure there's a dam up in there. There's
No
a
kidding.
controlled dam, has boards and sluices that have to be removed or
Wow.
installed to hold the
I had no
water.
idea.
So if you want to include those cases in our jurisdiction, it would be the brook or,
Deep Brook.
right. So it could include brooks or, I don't know, what separates a brook from a deep brook?
Well, Deep Brook is the name of it.
What's the difference?
Well,
Difference between an intermittent stream and a perennial stream is the protections are much greater for a perennial stream. An intermittent stream is treated just like BVW. So it has a 100-foot buffer zone versus a perennial stream has a 200-foot buffer zone on each side, or 200 feet. That's considered riverfront, which is a resource area of its own. So it's stronger protections for the perennial streams.
Do we feel that it needs to be perennial, classified as perennial, that deep brook area? I'm not even sure where that is, but.
the bottom of,
Morse's Lane, it crosses Morse's Lane and runs across Middle Road, runs under, I guess, Middle Road.
right. But also the other way to access, remember we were just at Wild Rose Lane several weeks ago, but you get there via Park Drive. At the
Yeah,
bottom
direct.
of that's
Yeah.
a Deep Brook. Right now, there's a whole series of power lines that go through there. Costco's been wanting to develop in there for at least a decade.
Yeah, so protections for the brook would be a good idea,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because they're going to develop around it. So, but in that case, would you want to name it specifically? You know, we have jurisdiction over this as a perennial stream rather than as an intermittent stream, or I don't know how you would put it, but would you want to specifically say this particular place or this particular stream and this particular stream and let the others be? Or would you want to do it for the
I mean,
all of them?
that's not how I was thinking of approaching it. I was thinking of approaching it in more general terms, but so that it was known to include those areas. And
Yeah.
you were saying the only way is making that an intermittent stream.
And they're making it perennial.
I personally don't think that they should be specifically mentioned by name. I think this would restrict the commission too much.
But would you want to treat every intermittent stream as a perennial stream? I mean, some of them are just little, you know, practically ditches that dry up pretty quick.
That's why I was also mentioning, is there another classification that would separate them as far as, I don't know, depth or width or something like that, more from a dimensional point of view?
It has more to do with the amount of water going through it.
Or something.
I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel as far as the difference between a perennial and a intermittent. I just don't think that any perennial stream should be specifically named in a bylaw, because then that's like cutting your nose off in spite of your face.
Right. Okay.
But at the same time, we want to protect them more. Is that where we're leaning towards? We still want to protect
They
those.
already are protected more.
They already are.
No, not the ones that dry up. The intermittent streams, like I said, they're treated like BVW.
Right.
No, but perennials are already protected, and deep brooks are perennial, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, people have, proven that it dries up at times. So like when the Deep Brook Estates came through, we were treating all of that as if it was BVW. It had a 100-foot buffer zone, and that was all. Whereas if it was considered a perennial stream, then there'd be at least 200 feet that could be protected before you built a house on it, or at least got a permit to build a house on it. It would just give it that extra space.
I'm all for that extra space, but again, I don't think that it's well defined here as far as the difference, the perennial and the intermittent. I mean, it seems in practical sense, it'd be hard to apply, right?
Well, I think in the jurisdiction, it's, the way it's written is okay, but there'd be elsewhere in our bylaw where we'd have to specify that Deep Brook is considered a perennial stream. I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because.
Yeah, but I think I agree with Everett a little bit, because I don't know if you want to call anything out by specific name. I'd rather identify it by another means.
Well, I think that might be a point to discuss at a further meeting on this, those kinds of specifics. But in terms of jurisdiction, it's saying that, the intermittent streams, you get 100-foot protection, perennial rivers, streams, brooks, creeks, lands adjoining these resource areas out to a distance of 200 feet. I think, all that language there is fine. It would be later on within our own bylaw where we might have to specify, because we may run into an argument where someone presents us a photo of Deep Brook without any water in it and says, this is intermittent, there's no water here. But if we've specified and the town has passed that Deep Brook is a perennial stream, it just happens to be an exceptionally dry year, then we can still have that 200 feet worth of protection, and it minimizes the legal arguments. But that doesn't have to happen tonight.
Right.
So where would you improve the definition of that, Bob?
I don't know. I'm not sure where else it would be in here.
So Mary Lee, I mean, I'll take the action item of at least by definition getting the differences between intermittent and perennial a little bit, and see what that is, and so we can move on.
I think it's good for all of us to know what the differences are. They don't need to be defined here, and I don't think they need to be defined in this. Maybe they are elsewhere. I'm not sure.
I'm not asking to define them here. I'm just saying so that we can move on, and then we can understand it. And if there's any other issues, if we need some other definition here, we can put it in there. If we feel it's okay, then we'll leave it. But I agree. I think if we want to make it a better protected area, then we need to better define it somehow. Okay, so we were at note 3.
Correct.
Lands adjoining these resource areas out to a distance of 200 feet, known as a riverfront area, lands subject to flooding or inundation by groundwater or surface water. The land subject to the tidal action, coastal storm flowage, or flooding. Collectively, the resource area is protected by this bylaw. See note 4.
If you want to do that, we can do that. Note 4, note how the buffer zone is around the wetlands and non-flowing water bodies. The riverfront is around flowing water bodies. And tidal and flooded areas have no buffer zone. Note also that under the bylaw, the buffer zone and the riverfront areas are resource areas in their own right, triggering full jurisdiction and protectable in their own right. Okay. So that might be a note we'll have to leave in there.
Yeah, it does have, so should we put some of that language in there, or is it better, are we gonna have the notes in our bylaw?
We can have notes. Even if note 4 for us becomes note 1, that's fine.
Because it's too lengthy to include in the jurisdiction?
Yeah, we may choose to. You know, I mean, perhaps that's a conversation to have later. Either we consider it as part of section 2 or it's its own note.
I mean, yeah, I'm just looking at the navigation through this,
Right. Yeah.
going back and forth.
From page 1 to page 8, back and forth. I understand.
As somebody that's trying to understand it and read it.
Yeah.
It might be some cases easier just to, to place the actual language there.
Sure.
Said resource areas shall be protected whether or not they border surface waters. The jurisdiction of this bylaw shall not extend to uses and structures of agriculture that enjoy the rights and privileges of laws and regulations of the Commonwealth governing agriculture, including work performed for normal maintenance or improvement of land in agricultural or aquacultural uses as defined by the Wetlands Protection Act regulations, found at 310 CMR 10-04, C note 5. It looks like a legal.
Yeah, the AG interprets state laws. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we know this, the agricultural stuff supersedes. Yep, and hence this sentence in the bylaw largely repeating that statutory reference. The commission is well advised to ascertain actual eligibility of any project claiming to qualify for this type of, of exemption. That can probably stay as a note, but again, to be discussed later. How do we feel about striking out any reference in this section to saltwater? Because we don't have dunes, we don't have beaches. We have a little bit of estuary. We don't have ocean.
Right. I agree in tailoring it to Acushnet.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
So, and we do have a little bit of land subject to tidal action all the way up to River's End, and actually right up to the fish ladder at the sawmill property. But we can remove references to ocean and
Dunes.
dunes. Yep, I'll do that. Yes, yeah. We do have a little bit of mixture of fresh and salt water, so I'll leave that as estuary reference in. Beaches we don't have either.
What defines a beach?
That's a good
Yeah.
question.
What if we cleaned up Lake Street enough to swim in? Then we'd have a beach.
There used to be a beach.
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah, that's right.
But isn't a beach any piece of land that touches the waterfront?
And does it have to be sandy, I guess? That's a good question. I'm gonna make a note. Define beach. Okay.
So, yeah, this seems to be a good place to stop and review and see what we have and what we may need for the next meeting.
Sure.
So who's going to be doing the editing? Want me to do that, or? is that Joanne, based on your notes, Mary Lee?
I'm sorry, ask the question again?
So we're discussing all the edits that we are suggesting to the bylaw here, to the model.
Yeah.
Is
Write
that someone?
stuff down, Paul, I can do it.
Yeah, I'm just asking a question. Someone, if Bob, is Bob the best?
Yeah, so Merrily, yeah, what do you figure? I mean, I've been writing this down anyway. I can do it here.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay,
So Bob, you're gonna edit based on our discussions today.
correct.
Should we have some people, we can all have, looks like 4 is gonna be pretty big.
I can tell you what a beach is.
What's
You wanna
that?
get the definition of a beach, Everett?
Yeah, definition of beach. A shore of an ocean, sea, or lake, or the bank of a river covered by sand, gravel, or large rock fragments. So I guess we do have beaches in the town.
We're leaving that in, Bob.
We are leaving that in. Indeed, we are. Thank you, Albert.
You're welcome.
So I guess for all of us, we can review section 3 and 4 the next time we meet, which will probably be what, 2 weeks?
Our next meeting is the 22nd. So, yeah, you can plan one for the week after that if you want to. That'd be the 29th.
Right.
Hey, Merrily, it looks like the 22nd meeting on the 22nd is going to be really short.
It is, yes. There's an extension and a COC, and that's it.
Huh.
You want to just meet after, just continue with this after that one, and then we can have a week free.
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea.
Is everybody okay if it goes beyond 7 o'clock?
It's fine by me.
Fine.
That's fine.
Works
Do we need
for
to
me.
verify with Nick that we can stay on, Merrily?
No, I don't think so. I think once you're on, you're on. I don't think there's any limit to the length of the meeting.
Okay.
Mary Lee, can you bring the fees for all work that
Oh, sure.
what's that?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's easy. I have that listed.
Okay, yeah, because that's section 4. That's a pretty big section, so we might need some of those for that section.
Okay.
In the meantime, I like Ryan's idea with the topography and the way the Freetown and Rochester is very similar to the Acushnet geography. If you want to use those as references.
Sure.
To the model, and maybe we'll all have some ideas for the next meeting.
Okay.
Even though the order is different in some of these, right?
Is it?
Well, it looks like Freetown just doesn't include section 2 as a jurisdiction unless they included it in their purpose, which I don't think they did. Yeah, they don't have a jurisdiction section. But yeah, so I'll get the definition. I mean, I can, from my reference too, the perennial and intermittent, see if there's any dimensional specifications for those definitions.
My guess is going to have more to do with the amount of water moving through it.
Right.
How long that water lasts.
It's pretty vague in the dictionary.
Goody.
Mary Lee, is there anyone at MACC we could contact for some questions as a resource?
Yeah, they have a helpline, although I've never gotten a response when I've asked questions of them.
jeez.
Really?
But but they might be more responsive to questions about a bylaw.
And that's on the MACC website?
Yes, yes. It's called a forum, I think.
All right. So we're all going to look at sections 3 and 4 with the other bylaws and get familiar with that and how they would apply differently or not to Acushnet.
Correct.
Could I get a copy of those, please?
Sure. If you can send me your email, or if you want to just tell it to me now, it's up to you.
Yeah, sure. All small letters. EPHILLA at Comcast.net.
All right, I'll send you those, Everett.
Thank you.
Appreciate your interest. That's all that I can think of right now. Does anybody have anything else?
This MACC model bylaw template, that's available on MACC's website.
It is.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
I can send it to you, Ryan, if you like.
All right, yeah, either that, or I'll go on there. If you can send it to me, that'd be good.
I can send it to you, and Everett, I'll send it to you as well.
Oh, I have it. It was emailed to me by Joanne.
Okay. In the notice of the meeting? Separately.
It came a couple weeks ago, I think.
All right. I'll send it to Ryan then.
Great.
So I think that's about it. Next meeting, September 22nd,
Second.
following the meeting.
A very short Concom meeting. Paul, thank you.
No, thanks everybody for attending. I'll see you. Well, by the way, I won't be able to. I don't know yet if I'll be there on Saturday.
Okay.
It's getting busy, really busy at work. Trying to get a weekend shift and everything. So,
Okay.
but I'll let
see
you
the
know.
rest of you on Saturday.
I'll give you my final answer later on in the week.
Okay, great.
All right, y'all. Have a nice evening.
All right,
Yeah,
good
you
night.
too.
Right.
Hey, good night.
Thanks,
Night.
Marley. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Good night.